Hey everybody, Grayson here, Gundam Gambler. Today, I want to answer the question I've been getting the most, which is why I decided to ultimately invest into Gundam over another game. Like, for example, Lorcana or Dragon Ball. These are games that have done very well. Why am I putting money into Gundam? But before we get into that, I do want to cover GDO3. This is going to be installment 2 of kind of just looking at top 1, 5, 10 values in these sets and just getting a better idea overall of what's already out there in the Gundam TCG market. So Steel Requiem, GDO3, $116.27, up around 14% over the past 90 days. If you look at the 6-month chart here, these were going as low as around $90 late February. So we're already seeing decent growth here. The other interesting thing that excites me about Gundam, I understand they're printing more product than maybe some other games, which we'll touch on here in a second, but 4,000, almost 4,200 boxes have sold in about 6 months, right? So a lot of sell through on these products. People definitely want them. And again, this is a game that nobody in the investing space on YouTube is already talking about. But looking at the top 1, 5, 10 values, we'll do this quickly. Top 1 value around $387. That is going to be the G-Fred LR++. I know TCG Player has this around $387, but recent sales, June 20th, $600, $452 as well on the 14th. Not a ton of copies exchanging hands. You do have a listing here at $822. So I would say overall, it's probably a little bit higher than $387 at this point. The Camphor as well, LR++, $376. Recent sales. You did have a few here in later June. So $650, $600, $579, and then we had an LP sell on Canada Day, $343. Realistically, this might actually be the top hit in the set now, but these are 1 and 2. Outside of that, we have Overflowing Affection, this SP. This is currently the 3rd most expensive card in the set, going for about $120. Maybe recent sales a little bit higher than that. Battle of Aces SP. This is going for around $94. Recent sales maybe a little bit lower there. And then rounding out the top 5, a Show of Resolve, another SP. This is going for $90. And I also learned that the SPs in a booster box case of GDO3, I believe there's a lot more than in a booster box case of GDO4. So that is ever evolving by Bandai. But when we look at top 5 value, almost $1,100, top 10 value, $1,319.45. To me, if I had to choose between these two sets right now, I would probably be buying Phantom Aria. The one thing I do want to point out that I didn't touch on in the last video, every set released so far that's a mainline set, I don't know about EBO1 yet, but they all have God packs, right? So you can pull a God pack of alternate arts. I think that's great. Some people might argue that's a bit concerning. Bandai feels the need to put that into every set, but overall, I'm not too worried about it. So that's going to be second installment. Next video, we'll do Dual Impact. Then after that, we'll do New Top Rising. Then we'll do EBO1 afterwards. Get a really good lay of the land for the booster box sets. Now, before we go any further and talk about why I decided to invest in Gundam, if you guys are enjoying the content, I'd really appreciate if you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. It does help out a ton, especially with a new channel, getting it pushed out. Also, if you guys have hypes, hype the video. I know that's a newer thing. Some people probably don't even know how to use it, myself included, but if you do, apparently that helps a ton. So thank you guys for the support. Useful links too in the description if you guys are, buying stuff on Hobbiesville. They have some decent deals on Steel Requiem. I think they're probably the cheapest source right now, at least in Canada, for Phantom Aria. So definitely check that out. But the topic of today, because a lot of people have told me, why not invest into Disney Lorcana? Why not invest into Dragon Ball? Why not invest into Riftbound? Now, Riftbound, I have a little bit of exposure to. That game does interest me, especially with the announcements of what's to come, right? That Riot's really cooking some stuff up. But a lot of people are talking about Dragon Ball, and they're talking about Disney Lorcana, and rightfully so, right? I've picked up or shown you guys, kind of displayed some of the most desirable sealed products. So Fabled, this is up 644% over the past year, and most of that coming in the past 6 months, 565% return. Dragon Ball, I chose some of the more expensive sets, so This is Manga Booster 01, SBO1. This is up 590%. Then SBO2, this is up 640% in 6 months. And then Rivals Clash, which I think is the third most expensive box right now, up 308%. Now, the first thing I want to point out is I've had a couple people say that Disney Lorcana is the game if you're looking for the most expensive chase cards. And I'm not fully sold on that yet. I would have to do a little bit more research. But when you look at something like One Piece, OP13, by the way, TCG Player doesn't even show the Luffy and Ace right now. They're not in stock. OP13, EBO2, there are multiple sets that have total set values over 30K now, right? Like the Luffy alone in OP13, it's a $20,000 card, might even be slightly more expensive than that at this point. The Ace, that's probably $4,000. The Sabo's 4K. Like those top 3 cards alone, you're looking at around $30,000. Then you have the regular Luffy, that's $2,000-$3,000. The gold Shanks, the silver Shanks, the other Ace and Sabo cards, the Demon God pack, the Wanted poster. You have a ton of value in One Piece, right? And there's multiple sets you could point to. Same thing with Magic, right? Like there's very expensive cards in Magic. Even Dragon Ball, if you look at some of these sets, there are expensive cards too. But the point is, you have to go a little bit deeper than that, right? So, okay, let's look at print runs. Okay, well, Dragon Ball, if we want to look at SBO1, this is a box that over the past year has only sold 873 boxes. They didn't print a ton of this, right? It didn't take a ton of money to push this box up almost 1,000%. A ton of those sales, by the way, of those 873 were back over 6 months ago at this point. If we look at the 6-month chart, only 186 sales. SBO2, more of the same, past 6 months, almost 1,200 past year. We're talking like 2,400. That's a little bit better. Rivals Clash, 100 boxes in the past 6 months, 273 in the past year. Lorcana, it's more of the same. Fabled, which is probably one of the more popular sets, 727 sales in the past 6 months, 35, almost 3,600 in the past year. Most of that coming when these boxes were 130, 140, 150, sub $200, right? So as these boxes have gotten more expensive, liquidity has dropped off a cliff. And I understand if you bought 6 months ago and you're up 500-600%, you're not really worried about getting top dollar more than likely, and you're probably going to have no problem selling your box for 80%, maybe even 85%. But that's not really the person that I'm talking to, because I think people right now are buying into Lorcana. They're buying into Dragon Ball still. I've seen this cycle before with One Piece, and OP13 is by far, in my opinion, the best set ever released by Bandai. Maybe 17 will be better. Maybe there'll be a better set in the future. But up till now, OP13 was the set, right? And this was $700 in January and then early February. I know 666, whatever, close to $700. The box is actually down since January, right? We're down 20%. Now, we knew the reprint was coming. I think that's definitely stunted the growth. But there's a lot more demand for something like OP13 over the past 6 months, 3,000 sales over the past year. It hasn't even been out a year yet, since November. Over 9,000 boxes have sold. So I think you have to question what is going to happen to a lot of the top sets that people deem desirable, both in Dragon Ball and Lorcana and all these other games, right? If you're buying after everything's up 500-600%, do you really believe it's going to keep running? Or are you FOMOing in right now while everybody's talking about it, everybody's making videos about it? Because it's the same way with One Piece. A lot of people, if they got in January, they might be down on some sealed products, some slabs. Like if you bought the Luffy Secret Alt Art from OP13, that used to be $1,000 in a 10. It's now like $350, right? So some people are probably down money, and I think the same thing's probably going to happen with people buying the top right now in Lorcana and Dragon Ball. Doesn't necessarily mean that things can't go higher, because they might, but just looking at the success of One Piece over the past year, not everything continues to run, and the growth, even on things that are running, has been a lot slower. The other thing too, you have to ask yourself, moving forward in a game like Lorcana or Dragon Ball, is Bandai or Ravensburger going to print more product? I mean, with One Piece now, the game's becoming more established. We kind of have an idea what's going to happen 6 months after a set comes out. We're probably going to get that second wave. Price is going to come down. It's going to take a while for those boxes to be pushed through the market. I don't think that Lorcana or Dragon Ball have been stress tested. And I don't think that either company is going to overprint their product, but it is a little bit of a concern you should have. And then I think the final thing that you need to consider about all of this, if you're going to go into other TCGs, is how well they're going to do long term. For me, and I said this in the live today, I have almost $500,000 at this point invested into cardboard. I don't need to 10, 20x my money, right, to get to where I want to go. At this point, I'm fine with the vast majority of my portfolio being in Pokemon, being in One Piece. And if I double my money in 5 years, awesome, right? Like I'm going to be well on my way. But if you have $1,000, right? If you're, trying to make it rich, I understand why people are looking at these games, seeing the insane growth and trying to justify to themselves why it's going to continue to 5x, 10x every single year, when realistically, I just don't see that happening. And all of this brings us full circle to Gundam, which I apologize if people aren't interested in these other games, but this is just my rationale for why I'm choosing Gundam. It hasn't popped off yet. Same thing with Riftbound. That's why I have a little bit of exposure to that, but it's a Bandai game. You look at One Piece being first, popping off, Dragon Ball followed, Union Arena's done very well. Gundam's one of those only games right now that's relatively established, has a decently healthy scene that hasn't really moved a ton. And I understand the IP compared to One Piece or Lorcana or even Dragon Ball might not be the most popular in the West, but there is clear demand for this product. I mean, over 4,000 boxes of Steel Requiem have sold in 6 months, whereas Lorcana, some of these Dragon Ball sets, it's not even close to that number. So I think with nobody really talking about the game or paying attention, the fact that something like New Type Rising can triple within a year, the fact that the beta boxes in English are up 300-400% in the same time period, that's really exciting to me. What happens if products start to move, a few more people buy in, they see gains, they tell their friends, and there's just a little bit more of a snowball that starts to build? We could see Gundam do a very similar thing. We can honestly see Riftbound do a very similar thing too. So you never know, right? And that's why I'm deciding to get into Gundam, just because it's so close to MSRP or even below MSRP. I don't think it's as large of a risk as buying some of these games that have already kind of popped off, where people are paying 4, 5, 6, 7, 10x MSRP for certain products. If that's you want to be in a slightly better IP and pay 10 times the amount as you would for booster boxes in this game, go right ahead. I think that's absolutely fine. It's your money. You do you. This is also never going to be a massive percentage of my portfolio. I think the game can do well. There's a lot of potential there. But like I've said, for me, I don't need to 10x my money anymore, guys. So it's going to be a fun little side project. I do believe in the game. I think it's done quite well. And I've talked about this in the other video. There's so many similarities that I see to One Piece. So even if it reaches only 10% or 15% of the potential of that game, you're probably going to do very well in a lot of these cards and products. So with all that said, thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. I know it's a bit ranty. Maybe some of that didn't make sense. Curious to hear you guys' thoughts. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe wherever you are in the world, and I'll catch you in the next one.